Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again with one of my, I would say, more experimental builds for a showcase. Now, this one is built around a Geofri's Devotion weapon, which is an upgraded version of the Geofri mace that has something called elemental warding. You see these big Nova spikes coming out from my character from time to time. That is what it is, and it's also this little buff at the top, if you can see it amongst my slew of buffs from time to time, which lasts about 2 to 3 seconds, which makes you immune to curses, or unaffected by curses rather. But the main cell of the weapon is that Nova effect that hits quite hard. It's got 2 to 3,000 base physical damage, and it triggers off of melee attacks, which counts in this case as charge dash. So that's how we use, or that's the skill we use to trigger the effect. But it has 2 to 3,000 physical damage on a 1 second cooldown. So the idea that I've gone with is to kind of just roll it as a similar sort of build to a Wave of Conviction scaling. We have a bunch of physical, spell, elemental scaling, some conversion, some extra fizz as cold and lightning, that sort of stuff. It's an elementalist with golems. It has all the heralds. It has hatred, and I've also got cast while channel charge dash into Wave of Conviction. And it does hit quite damn hard. For mapping, it's kind of a beast. Like, it will one-shot just about any mapping mob you come across, all the way up to the high tier maps, and it's quite efficient in that route. And if you chuck on an explosion chest, like for example in the next couple of minutes of clips, it really does smash some ass throughout the mapping scene. But the problem is, it felt kind of like I was just playing an explosion chest build at that point, because Elementalist with some conversion really scales well with explosion chest. So at that point, I was basically just running around exploding maps, and it hardly felt like my own neat niche little build. Since explosion chest can be pretty overpowered with these combos, I did end up taking it out, and I was just rolling pure Herald of Ash kind of overkill damage. Since we can't crit on this weapon either, you aren't allowed to build into Herald of Ice quite as much, and can't really do elemental overload or shatter things too well. So we do just have overkill damage in the end from Herald of Ash. Or you can roll the explosion chest and just have one of the best clears going off in the game, but at that point, not sure it's really worth even using this mace. You may as well possibly just run like a blade vortex or some shit like that. And no explosion chest has its own satisfaction and own benefits as well, because the overkill can actually help with clear on some of the tougher stuff from time to time. Ultimately, it's not going to be as good clear without the explosion chest, but it gives a completely different feel where you're kind of melting through mobs instead of just exploding entire screens. Long story short, let's just hope that they do something about explosion chests, because fuck me, does it kind of feel bad ignoring its existence on some characters. Because this is a non-explosion chest variant, as you can see, and it's a lot more cascadey in its damage, a bit more overkill based, and also a bit more buttery, as you can tell. Sometimes damage just kind of goes from little wave to wave, cascades through enemies, and still feels pretty damn good, pretty satisfying for mapping overall. The big drawback of this character is ultimately that it doesn't have fuck all single target damage, because we are based around a 1 second cooldown skill, the elemental warding, and you can't really reduce it by too much. Cooldown recovery does help, but I'm using a belt that perma-curses me with vulnerability so that I can be counted as low life, since that's one of the ways I've decided to try and up my damage in this build, and I'll go over that in a sec when I show you the gear. Means I can't really get much cooldown recovery, so it's pretty much always going to be close to 1 second on the cooldown, and it hits for close to 1,000,000 at this point, each individual hit, but that means that at best I've got probably about 1,000,000 DPS, which really isn't anything special in today's day and age, and for the endgame bosses it falls incredibly flat, and just not something I can at all recommend. for doing any sort of bossing. For mapping, it was great. It was pretty enjoyable. Got to level 92. Thoroughly enjoyed the process, especially up to red tier maps, whites, yellows. As soon as you equip the thing from 61 to about 85, it feels like a dream. But then you do some bosses and it's pretty wonky, especially if you choose to do charge dash like I did, because your only other alternative is Cyclone, and you don't just want to play another Cyclone build, do you? Probably. But either way, your only alternative is Cyclone if you want to do some cast while channeling shit. So the procs don't really get much better, and you're still very melee in that regard, and the DPS doesn't really get any better for single target, even with Cyclone. So that's where it is, just not much single target. It did give me the chance to explore the golem side of things once again, and this time around I went with a focus resummon helmet, which is really convenient. So being able to resummon 4 of my golems from one focus button press and then just resummon the 5th one on demand made it so that I could have my golems up for just about every encounter, just about always. So that's one good way of fixing the entire golem problem with an elementalist, and something I can definitely recommend. The issue with that is that so many different characters really want a helm slot as something fun and unique and not just a rare helm. So that's why it's not necessarily viable for everyone, and you can see my charge dash kind of got me in trouble by just releasing onto that boss where I got myself shit on entirely. So charge dash will sometimes do that, and I do have an entire Cirrus attempt, we can't call it a kill, attempt for you to watch with this pathetic DPS, with my golems, and with charge dash. It's one of the more interesting and one of the more painful Cirruses I've ever tried. Once again, didn't finish, so spoiler on that one, but maybe you might want to enjoy watching me get completely shit on, and I'll do that at the end of the video. For now though, I will show you what I'm talking about with the gear and how to gear this type of a thing, and what the item is. Maybe you got some better ideas, like building into it with Ignite, for example. But let's get into the gearing. So here we are with the character, level 91, want to buy gem sockets. Since I was gonna have to do a 6-link sort of thing here, heralds, golems, auras, yeah, it was gonna be a struggle on gem sockets, so that's why we called it that. And like I said, this is definitely one of the more experimental things I've ever done, and probably one of the biggest, what I would classify, I suppose, failures in a while, because it still works and all that, but and it's got some positives on it. But to me, a well-rounded character is a success, and it's not very well-rounded because of the real struggle to do end-game bosses. It's just not good for it at all. But the weapon and the item we're building around is Geofri's Devotion, which is just a bunch of physical damage, never deal critical strikes, and then elemental warding on melee hit while cursed. You want to be always cursed, so you want vulnerability in this case, which is why we're using Coward's Legacy belt. You are cursed with level 20 vulnerability, and you are then counting as low life while you are cursed with vulnerability. So that means we can be full-blown CI and still make use of pain attunement. So 30% more while on low life, because we are always low life. We will always be immune to this curse any single time we actually hit with melee, which is almost always. There aren't too many situations where it's an issue. The Cirrus fight is kind of one of those, because there's a lot of not hitting the boss from time to time. So that might get you in trouble, as you might see in a little bit of time. But the skill itself is this thing here. As you can see, it starts out with a fuck ton of fizz damage, but then also has a lot of extra scaling, and it will convert. It says fires projectiles in all directions, converting all their physical damage to a random element, and then grants a buff that makes you unaffected by curses for a duration, and it removes any curses on you. This is a permanent curse, so it doesn't remove it. It's just if there's any with duration that get applied to you, they'll get wiped off immediately. So it starts out with 2,000 to 3,000 physical damage, is what you should be able to see if you go to the wiki, I think, which is a lot. Like, Wave of Conviction at level 20, I think, is half of that. So by default, it's got like twice the damage of a Wave of Conviction. The issue is you can't build it into crit, and you can't have Elemental Overload. So it does make it a bit more of a challenge to build into, and then once again, it's got a 1 second cooldown time. So at the moment it's 0.88 seconds because I've got a little bit of cooldown recovery on my boots. But there are other ways of building around it. As I mentioned, you can probably do things like Ignite with it, like a Chieftain with it, stuff like that. But the idea is that it will be kind of tough to get damage scaling on it because you can't scale through crit, and you can't scale through Elemental Overload. So it just needs to be some good flat percent damage and minus resist to enemies, stuff like that. So my idea was to go with the Golems and the Heralds because that scales generic damage quite nicely. Got a bunch of generic damage through the Golem nodes, bunch of generic damage there, and as much as I can through things like Empowered Envoy with the crappy little Herald damage jewels, aura buff, Heraldry, Empowered Envoy once again, this Herald node here, the Golem damage, and Anima Stone for more Golem damage, and once again Empowered Envoy and Endbringer down here. So we do have a lot of percent damage, and that is why Explosion Chest and shit like that will explode so freaking well. And as well as that, our actual clear speed and our damage for generic clear is really quite good. But anything that takes longer than takes more than one hit to die from an elemental warding is going to kind of start to suck. And that's where the end bosses start to be a bit of a problem. But you can see that the idea is that you still put in just 6 sockets into your weapon, so it is technically a 7 link for its for the trigger. And in that case we have Control Destruction, Inspiration, Added Fire, Energy Leech, Elemental Focus, and Slower Proj, though with mapping we use Faster Proj. It by default pierces as well, the projectiles pierce, so chain, fork, stuff like that doesn't work unless you're using a snake pit, and I haven't tried doing that, don't think it's really worth looking into, so we're using Faster Proj. Whereas our main link setup is Wave of Conviction, Cast While Channel, with Charge Dash, Inspiration, so that's how we actually get Inspiration charges, Ele Focus, and Controlled Destruction. Now you can use Cyclone instead if you'd rather, and then all of a sudden you are shitting out Wave of Convictions in random directions, but Charge Dash seems to fit this playstyle kind of nicely anyway. It is just a bit clunky when things don't die. And our reservation, we had to go out of our way to get quite a bit of reduced reservation and stuff so we can fit everything in. And in this case we have Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice, Herald of Purity, all of those are pretty good for us. I then have Discipline and then Hatred as well. And I've also anointed Charisma on the amulet, but you can see we get a bit of fizz as extra cold and stuff like that. Crit multi's irrelevant on this amulet, but it's there anyway. So that's all of our auras and stuff, and then like I said, it's pretty convenient with the Helmcraft trigger socketed spells when you focus to bust out all of your golems. So typically golems do die in endgame and it is kind of annoying, but with this sort of a setup it's super easy to keep them up because you just go bang, all 4 get resummoned, and then just have your 5th one on bar to resummon quickly as well. So every 10 seconds you can have your golems up like that, and it's quite convenient. Won't work for all sorts of characters like I said, because some do want a unique helm. And then otherwise we're just building CI, so plenty of CI type stuff. Just want a huge energy shield chest, spell crit has no importance here, and tried to just ignore the existence of explosion chest, but you don't have to do that. Otherwise, yeah, that's all our heralds. We've got Arcane Surge attached to Flame Dash, we've got a herald over here, a golem over here, and the other setup for all of our reservations over here with a level 3 Enlighten. If you get a level 4 Enlighten, that means you shouldn't need Charisma. We don't even really need it right now, it's more of a convenience, but you could cut out some certain reservation if you needed to, because at the moment it's fine. Or you could just get another thing like an aspect of the spider, potentially, I think. And then a bunch of flasks. Not too much else to mention really, I don't know. It was kind of a, I'd say, like I said, failed venture, but it was a lot of fun to build into and try out for the first time. From level 61 onwards, it was great for mapping. It was pretty enjoyable, but it's just not that good a build in the end if we're trying to do everything for our content. Otherwise, yeah, we got CI, we got our energy from within here, we're using Pain Attunement, got Zealot's Oath, so we're pretty tanky, using a minion jewel just mostly for Primordial Bond, got a few energies from within, and if there's anything else to mention, my first 4 nodes were the Golems, and then of course the Heralds. But yeah, there's not too much else to mention. Don't really encourage copying this thing, unless you just really want to do something quite funky and only map. Otherwise, yeah, it's a bit too weird. But the weapon's out there, you might want to play around with it yourself. It certainly looks like it has potential with that huge amount of extra damage. 2,000 to 3,000 base is quite a lot, especially at level 61, but for endgame I couldn't really get it to work in this setup. Maybe you can do a bit better. I'll leave you guys with the probably most painful series you'll ever see. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Had I any semblance of fucking brains, I would have put Cyclone in, at the very least use that. Am I doing it? Yeah. And I flasked up too. I mean, I can't really die to his regular shit at least. Not even hitting me, like I don't know what's up with that. I lost a golem. Oh, there we go. If I win, if this ends up working out, 15-minute fight? Maybe longer? I'm so scared of like using charge dash and whipping out of the zone. Everyone's still alive? Oh! Charge dash fully fucking counters that phase! Oh god. Did you see that though? I had it like charged up, and as he did that thing I released and it just broke the wall. Actual hard counter. Dude, actual fucking hard counter. It wasn't a fluke. Every time he actually hits me with his beam, it stuns me. Yeah, that was an accident even, and I just counted it again. That's crazy. I didn't know it would do that. So like a Void Forge charge dash build would be pretty fucking legit. We die. Oh. I'm gonna make sure I'm actually casting one before it goes off. Oh boy. I don't know, it wasn't too bad during these phases at least. But it will be rough. How did that happen, man? I just wasn't paying attention to the meteor things, I guess. And I wasn't. Can confirm. will be rough. Well, the rest of it's going to be rough too. And all of it's going to be rough, but... yeah. Oh, that sucks. I gotta do this again. Yep. I mean, if I don't hit recently, then I'm also vulnerability to high health. And that can sometimes get me in trouble, I feel. I swear he's doing his die beam way more often than before. Maybe it's just because I'm actually copying a lot of the attacks. Alright. This isn't good. Yeah, that's right. Like, I just have to have vulnerability during these phases. Damn, Golem's just got shit on. They die during this phase especially, don't they? No, dude! No! Ah! Ah! Too close to... the storm, it had me really thrown off. God, this is going to take forever. Oh, I got a few good hits in there somehow. Don't know how. Oh god. Let me through, for fuck's sake! I was too slowed and I was painfully aware of the fact that one of my golems was still dead. I couldn't resummon him. I was like trying to kind of tunnel vision at the time. So hard to do this fucking charge dash. And also vulnerability if I don't hit him recently, which is a lot of the time. Everyone's still alive for the time being. Oh god, I swear he's healing. This is so awful. Put me out of my fucking misery, dude. Fuck, I think I lost track of my mouse pointer. Like, I thought I was going up there and it just fucking turned me back down. Dodged dash. It's looking very much like a brick. We're almost there. In Brick Town. I just don't get any DPS uptime, and I don't have any DPS to insert into that uptime either. I didn't know where he was, and I didn't have any choice as to where I could go. Okay. Getting ready to do some deeps, and then nothing. I needed to resummon my golems, but I needed to get a few more hits on him. There's just too much. Like, it's not enough that I have to fucking do this with no DPS and charge dash. I'm also an elementalist that has to keep resummoning fucking golems. And actually attack him to do damage. Or to do defense. I thought you were good at this game. Thanks, dude.
Feel the thrill of
Golems are almost dead already. Nothing even happened yet. Got a bit of DPS uptime there, but... Oh, come on, he's such a bad position. Come on, dude.
when I'm ready and not before.
I had nowhere to go. I was slow. There was a zone up there. I couldn't go up, down, or anything. There was just nothing left, and I kept trying to mash my summon re-golem just before that, but it was still on cooldown. I think I could probably do it if I had to do it again now. I feel a bit more in tune with what I gotta do. But it's a bit of a learning experience to begin with, honestly.